Purple, boxy, a weird carrying handle. The GameCube was different, and the offerings we got in RPGs matched that style. There are some, of course, traditional RPGs we'll cover in this video that you probably expect, but then the GameCube was too odd to be boring, so we're going to see how that uniqueness bled into its games. The RPG that surprised me the most will be the last one in the video, so we'll be following that order. Here we go. Skies of Arcadia Legends. Skies of Arcadia Legends is a port of the magnificent Skies of Arcadia that originally debuted on the Dreamcast, and that's actually why it's the first one on this list. This game was developed by Overworks and published by Sega. I'm telling you folks, we've been sleeping on Sega. I've been sleeping on Sega development for way too long. Wow. The team that made this game had folks from Phantasy Star and Sakura Wars. Just incredible pedigree. Anyway, this title cast you as Vice, the young, optimistic air pirate of the Blue Rogues, who yearns for justice, robs from the rich, and gives to the needy.
It takes a wee percentage.
But I'm not greedy.
This sends him and his crew across a floating world full of mystery, imperialistic tyranny, and lost civilizations. The cinematic direction and flair, coupled with the narrative depth, is where Skies of Arcadia Legends takes flight. Takes flight, get it? Yeah. It leans heavily into classic JRPG storytelling, a young hero rising up against an empire, uncovering ancient truths, and forming an unlikely alliance of rebels and outcasts. But what makes this narrative excel isn't necessarily these tropes. It's the character interactions, the earnest tone of Vice and his band, and the unrelenting sense of hope that is infectious, found in every corner of this world. The discovery of the lost moon crystals, the clash with the Valuan Empire, and the bonds forged aboard the ships give the game its soul. The combat is turn-based. Rejoice, peasants, turn-based combat. Players manage a party of up to 4 characters in traditional battles, each bringing their own set of weapons and magic. Special moves are stylized, cinematic, and character-specific. These are powered by a shared spirit point meter, offering strategy to each encounter. As an example, you have to have the spirit point cost as well as the resources, in the case of magic and items, to be able to use those abilities. The magic spells you learn are drawn from elemental moonstones, and the more a character uses a specific color of stone, the more spells they unlock in that element. You know, it's kind of funny when I think about it. It's a little like Quest 64. We shouldn't have been sleeping on Quest 64 either. Now, this rewards specialization and experimentation. You need more healers, change your weapon to green. You need more damage, change your weapons to red. When these characters use these weapons in combat, they'll earn points that progress their knowledge in that art, and they will learn spells from it. You can switch these even in the middle of battle, and you can set the default color in the menus. It's not obtuse to change either. You just press a button and it'll change the color of your weapon. There is no cost to switch, so it's a great way to customize your party for exactly your needs and your playstyle. Ship battles are another defining RPG element, feeling both tactical and theatrical. The large-scale battles unfold over gridded turns, where players have to predict enemy movements, choose when to fire cannons, and when to brace for impact. It adds a grand scope that sets Skies of Arcadia apart from its peers. Again, the optimism and sense of discovery in this game is unparalleled. It'll have you tracking down hidden landmarks and civilizations, searching for the flying fish things in the air, working toward completion because it's just so good. The game was a little frustrating for me at one point, but, well, it wasn't actually the game. Folks, look, sometimes I have a room temperature IQ. That's not the game's fault. Let me tell you what I did. Like, just rookie mistakes, man. Before I went out on my first big adventure or whatever, I didn't go to the shop. What kind of idiot does that? So I was there in the first boss fight in the first dungeon, just whittling away with that pathetic little butter knife that I had in basically a plastic boomerang. When I got back, I was like, I won't make that mistake again. So I went to the shop. I had plenty of money because I've been killing a bunch of stuff, right? I started buying everything, right? I had all the money, so buy upgrades for everybody. But then I bought 10 pieces of armor instead of 1. And the problem becomes when I go to sell it back, the guy only wanted to give me half my money for it. So I had 10 pieces of gear I did not need. Well, really 12, but I had 10 extra pieces of gear I didn't need. Had to sell it back at half the price, and then I didn't have money for the next shop. Great stuff. I mean, just rookie mistakes this time around. Anyway, friendly reminder, just because I suck does not mean the game sucks. There's a little debate about which version of this game is better, because again, it came out on the Dreamcast and it came out on the GameCube. Let me share with you some of those differences. This enhanced version brings refined visuals, as in the characters now have fingers. Fingers, how exciting.
Fingernails? Really?
The GameCube version has reduced random encounters and increased experience to make up for it. Hey, that's pretty cool. It added bounty like Wanted Quest, breathing some new life into what was already one of the most spirited and endearing RPGs of its era. But it's not all rainbows and lollipops. While there was improvement in frame rate in certain areas, graphics on the GameCube version apparently tear a little more often than the Dreamcast version. They tear a little more often on the Dreamcast. Mustard or ketchup? The audio is usually touted as considerably better on the Dreamcast version, and I think I agree. As an example, listen to this. The GameCube music just feels a little more compressed, a little muted. Now here's the rub. This game surprised me quite a bit when I played it recently on the Dreamcast. I know, I'd heard it was good, but guys, holy smokes, it is so good. The fact that it is still good on GameCube as a port is not terribly surprising. I think in the end, I prefer the Dreamcast version, but that may simply be because I played that one first. It feels crisp. It feels experimental and so ahead of its time for Dreamcast, but when it's on the GameCube, it feels slightly behind times, honestly. And that was actually a common criticism of the game on the GameCube. People were like wildly impressed with it when it came out on Dreamcast, but then when it came out on GameCube, it was like, we've seen that stuff. Give us something new. Not much different than the way we do things nowadays in video games, but whatever. Moving on. You know, speaking of which, if you're into more Dreamcast RPGs like Skies of Arcadia, check out my Dreamcast video, which I'll link at the end of this video. But regardless of which version you're interested in the end, Skies of Arcadia Legends it's legendary. It's imbued with wonder, driven by growth, and designed to make you feel like the sky is the limit. It's a sky pirate RPG, you can't beat that. That's so cool, it's so good. The story is epic and the gameplay is fun. I mean, it's just so enjoyable, so cinematic, and just fantastic. For a game called Skies of Arcadia Legends, Legends is its identity. Speaking of identity, have you ever Googled yourself to see what pops up? It can actually be a little shocking. You'll probably find like your phone number, maybe your home address, even some family members. And all of it's just out there in the nebula of the internet for anyone to find. That's because data brokers are collecting and selling your private info without your consent. But that's where today's video sponsor Incogn comes in. Incogn goes to work looking for your data from over 250 shady sites, automatically. If you go with their unlimited plan, you can submit custom links to sites exposing your info that aren't even on their standard list. You just copy the link, paste it in, and Incogn's privacy team will work for you to take care of the rest of it. I'm on the unlimited plan myself, and let me tell you, it's been awesome. Seeing my info disappear from white pages and stuff like that and getting less calls, spam calls, is great. It feels like finally shutting a door and locking it on a door that had been open for years. It feels safe. Incogn is fast, it's easy, it's not difficult to set up, and it's still working while you're sleeping. So if you're tired of being tracked or spammed or, even possibly worse, take your privacy back. Use my code PixelBro with the link below and you can get 60% off the annual plan, which is exactly what I'm using. Let Incogn start working for you today, and in doing so, you are actually supporting my channel too. And I thank you so much for that, and I want to thank Incogn for the sponsorship for this video. Let's get back into it. Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance. You know we gotta talk about Fire Emblem. Released in 2005 for the Nintendo GameCube, Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance was the first game in the long-standing tactical RPG series to tackle 3D. Developed by Intelligent Systems, those absolute masters of the craft, Path of Radiance gave North America on the GameCube and in 3D what Japanese fans had long appreciated in many 2D entries before. A deep, character-driven strategy game where every decision on the battlefield counts, and every unit was a personality with something to lose. Beyond their lives, of course. This wasn't the first Fire Emblem game released in the US, but it wasn't far off either. We had only just gotten Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance and Sacred Stones in 2003 and 2005, respectively. You play as Ike, the brute dog in Smash Brothers, as I knew him before playing this, or the blue-haired mercenary people will come to love because of a combination of this game and Smash Brothers fame. His journey begins in pretty humble circumstances as he's the son of a mercenary leader. As they so often do, this story spirals into an epic involving war between nations, racial prejudice between humans and beast tribes, divine intervention, and world-altering consequences. And really, this is a pretty similar setup for many RPGs, but particularly often for Fire Emblem. You're a commonish person doing common things, and then things get absolutely wild as a buck and you're fighting an evil god by the end. At the root of everything though, Fire Emblem's about growth, both for the characters and for the players. Ike's ascent from inexperienced fighter to leader of armies is paced to mirror your own evolution as a tactician. and you'll find yourself celebrating yourself as much as you celebrate him. The gameplay is what you'd expect if you've seen Fire Emblem games. If it ain't broke, folks, don't fix it. Simply adheres to the classic Fire Emblem formula. Turn-based grid combat, a weapon triangle that dictates matchups, and the infamous permadeath system, where units that fall in battle are gone for good. And I have to confess, I only had to reset the game twice this time around when I was recording footage. Brilliant tactician. That's actually pretty good for me. The permadeath system in some of the more recent Fire Emblem games has become an option. Back when this came out, it was not a choice yet. You die, you dead. While it maintains this pattern, Path of Radiance does add a few new ingredients. A difficulty setting. Easy. I ain't no weenie, but I ain't crazy either. I'm selectively brave. The game features some combat diversity of playing with human characters or shapeshifters. The shapeshifters have to power up in combat before they transform, but when they do, man, they wreck. The humans are just a more balanced setup. Where humans have classes, the shapeshifters have, I guess, a species? Beasts, dragons, birds. Oh my! This is enough of a gameplay dynamic change to give this game a go. Visually, it may not have the polish of modern titles, but Path of Radiance was a technical bound for the franchise, moving from 2D to 3D and having cutscenes. The stylized environments and expressive character portraits gave the game a distinct identity, even as it tread new technological ground. I think the graphics do look a bit simple at times, especially for the GameCube, but I feel like the gameplay is just so enjoyable that you'll forgive them for foregoing a few graphical flourishes. The music, much like the rest of the series, combines medieval bravado with somber tunes at times, and this gives weight to cutscenes and inspiration during battle. Narratively, the game tackles some surprisingly mature themes for a Nintendo title. Classism, xenophobia, and the ethical consequences of war that just all take it on, head on. The beast and human tensions mirror some real-world racial struggles, and Ike's role as an outsider navigating both political and moral conflict gives players an active lens through which to question the systems around them. Again, you'll be celebrating Ike while also sharing in his woes. Path of Radiance has, of course, character progression, inventory management, and branching unit promotion paths. Regarding strategy, it delivers nail-biting tactical depth where positioning, terrain, and long-term planning are paramount. And emotional investment in your characters is just inevitable. You'll care so much for them, you won't want them to die. That's the trap of Fire Emblem. Fall in love with these characters and then try to watch them die on the battlefield and not reset that game. It's not happening. Recommending Fire Emblem to RPG fans is pretty daggone easy. Did you like literally any other Fire Emblem game? You're probably going to like this one as well. If sugar is good, then Sugar on Sugar will be really good. It's no surprise that Fire Emblem was good. The series is just so consistent with its quality. The same can be said of this next game and other entries in its franchise, but it did surprise me with how much I fell in love with the story. It's Tales of Symphonia. Tales of Symphonia is one of the most beloved RPGs of the 6th console generation, and basically a cornerstone title for the GameCube's limited but high-quality RPG library. If you're looking at a list of RPGs for the GameCube, you're likely going to find this one on there. It's pretty well known and well renowned. Developed by Namco Tales Studio and released in North America in 2004, it delivers an emotionally packed story on the frame of great action combat, character progression, and a morally complex narrative. Don't let these bright colors fool you. The story follows Lloyd Irving, a headstrong and idealistic young swordsman, and his childhood friend Colette Brunel, the chosen of their world, as they embark on a journey of regeneration to restore mana to the dying world of Silveron. But what starts as a traditional save-the-world quest gives way to a two-world system, some hidden agendas, and heartbreaking truths about sacrifice and the nature of salvation. It gets epic pretty fast, but it's also thick with the issues that always plague humans and society struggles to outgrow. Stuff like xenophobia, racism, and slavery. You know, those light, unobtrusive issues. These narrative layers give the story its oomph and elevate the problems of a few to a global worldview and maturity. It has all the hallmarks of great RPG storytelling. World building in Tales of Symphonia is expansive and intricate. There are two independent worlds, Silveron and Talala, that are linked in a fragile balance of mana. As you travel between towns, temples, forests, and ruins, the game explores some more wildness like discrimination, environmental degradation, religious manipulation, and the value of free will. Each region has unique cultures, political systems, and struggles, making exploration feel rewarding and, of course, meaningful. It, as it so often does, boils down to some betrayals and protagonist-antagonist goodness, but I don't think that takes away from it at all. The big thing to note is that it is an epic and lofty, but simultaneously grounded and thoughtful story. Character development is key in this story because you have to want to help these characters. You have to buy into their world to get the emotional impact of the issues that they are dealing with, and the game sells this extremely well. Players control a party of distinct personalities, of course, including the stoic Kratos, the energetic Genis with the unfortunate name, and the mysterious Presea? Whatever. I don't remember how they pronounce it. Each character has their own backstory, motivations, and moral dilemmas, which evolve through skits, optional dialogue scenes that offer humor, insight, and emotional depth. There are a lot of these that I experienced in my time with it, but this is some of the best character development moments out there. These skits, combined with the significant plot twist and loyalty-altering choices, create a dynamic and reactive narrative. Again, it really makes you buy into the characters. Combat in Tales of Symphonia distinguishes itself from traditional turn-based systems by using something they called the linear motion battle system. This is a real-time action system that allows players to control one character while AI handles the rest. This makes battles feel super busy, immediate, and frantic, almost like a fighting game. And I absolutely abused it like a person who was terrible at fighting games, often just spamming one distance move over and over at enemies far away just to keep from taking too much damage. Those who fight and run away live to fight another day. Each character learns a variety of arts or special moves and techs, which can be customized and chained into combos, mixing tactical planning with real-time execution as you switch between characters on the battlefield as necessary. It gives you access to your party, but only one at a time, and that's fine by me because I'm too busy spamming. Progression systems are rich and satisfying. Characters level up and gain stats in typical RPG fashion, but there are also X gems that can be slotted and combined to enhance abilities and unlock unique passive bonuses, as well as X skills. Things like equipment management is of course a thing, but that's a staple for most RPGs anyway. The standout really is that linear battle system and customizing your characters with X gems to unlock skills. It's fun and rewarding as far as gameplay progression goes. There's some side quest content in this game and hidden bosses, which of course add length to an already deep game. Visually, Symphonia just hasn't died, in part to its cel-shaded art style that gives it a timeless anime aesthetic. The expressive character models and bright world design elevates the emotional beats of the story. And the music ain't no slouch either. Again, you're going to want to save this world, and that's one of the greatest compliments I think you can give a game like this. Tales of Symphonia is a definitive action RPG. It gives us that awesome combat that we've come to expect from the Tales series, and some deep lore for a world that is incredibly built and clearly lived in. The party-based storytelling is hard to beat and incredibly entertaining, particularly given the charm of the characters and the beautiful profiles that appear on screen. They legitimately feel like real people in a real world dealing with real struggles. Tales of Symphonia isn't just a standout title on the GameCube, it's one of the most complete and accessible RPGs of its generation. If you ask a bunch of people what their favorite Tales game is, you're likely going to hear Symphonia mentioned often. And that's for good reason. This next game is also from a franchise that is very well known for its quality, but it's one franchise that I've really found difficult to enjoy as an adult, despite the fact that I absolutely loved it when I was younger. I was, however, extremely surprised at the direction that this game went and how much it really helped me enjoy it. A total surprise to me was Pokemon Colosseum. Pokemon Colosseum isn't your typical Pokemon title, and that's exactly why I like it and wanted to talk about it. Released in 2004 for the Nintendo GameCube, it broke away from the colorful badge collecting adventures of its handheld cousins and instead delivered a more gritty, narrative-driven RPG experience. And folks, I'm here for it. Even out the gate, the game just feels so different. Set in the sun-scorched Ore region, Colosseum trades grassy fields and starter towns for abandoned outposts, criminal syndicates, and cyberpunk desert cities. And it's less about kids and more about the adult world that I honestly forget inhabits the world of Pokemon as well. I've heard it referred to as Pokemon Mad Max, and I don't know if that's an unfair assertion. Pokemon Colosseum is not about catching them all, it's about stealing them back. That's kind of neat. You play as Wes, a former member of Team Snag'em, and talk about wearing your goals on your sleeve, a group known for using a device that forcibly steals Pokemon from other trainers. I actually work for a syndicate called Team Please Binge My Videos. The name's a work in progress. Anyway, the game begins with Wes blowing up his former base, stealing the snag machine, and going rogue. That edgy setup forms the backbone of Colosseum's most unique RPG mechanic, snagging.
Shall we shag now or shall we shag later?
Unlike other Pokemon titles, where wild Pokemon are caught in the tall grass, Colosseum limits your acquisitions to shadow Pokemon, those corrupted by the sinister Cypher organization, which you are supposed to snag from the other trainers and purify.
It takes a wee percentage.
But I'm not greedy.
This twist changes the entire Pokemon gameplay loop. There are no wild Pokemon encounters in Ore. Every battle matters because every shadow Pokemon is a one-time opportunity.
You only get one shot. Do not miss a chance to blow.
The sense of scarcity transforms the strategy and party building into something more meticulous and intense. Purification, too, is no simple mechanic. You must lower a shadow Pokemon's anger gauge, I guess it's called or whatever, by using it in battle. Pokemon who are all shadowed up and have their Kingdom Hearts stolen don't listen to their trainer. They go hyper mode and have to be like called back from the darkness. That's really kind of messed up when you think about it. It's sort of like an emotional investment in these Pokemon as the trauma leads them to some dark places and you gotta call them back from the abyss. You know, I've often called Pokemon chicken fighting simulators as a joke, but I feel like there's an opportunity to develop a game for Appalachia here. In this one, you bust up chicken fighting rings, which are illegal anyway, by the way, and then you teach the chickens to be proper cluckers again. Maybe it could be like Pokemon calls them like on a season. Whatever, forgive me, moving on. Combat itself is solidly turn-based in 2v2, pushing players to think in pairs. It rewards synergy between the moves and abilities of your duo Pokemon, while Shadow Pokemon add extra tension with their trauma causing them to disobey or inflict recoil damage. Each battle plays like a small puzzle, especially since trainers often bring strong, evolved Pokemon from the start, making this one of the hardest Pokemon games to date. It honestly really surprised me how difficult this game was. I mean, it's no Dark Souls, but maybe it's the Dark Souls of Pokemon. Pokemon Colosseum leans into its RPG identity through its structure too. There are towns to explore, NPCs to speak with, and cutscenes to advance the plot. Unlike traditional Pokemon games where narrative often takes a back seat, Colosseum tells a tightly controlled story about corruption, redemption, and rebellion, and it's surprisingly sophisticated. The plot is a little more than I want to be the very best. Wes is a silent protagonist, but the game's focus on cinematic presentation and world building gives your journey real stakes. Every encounter builds on Cypher's growing threat, and your progress through each Colosseum is a story beat, not just a badge. Progression is also streamlined and meaningful. With a limited roster of snaggable Pokemon, each decision you make in training, purifying, and evolving your team feels more consequential, like really consequential. When there are only so many Pokemon to obtain, the risk feels elevated. The RPG satisfaction here comes from mastering that fixed system, most akin to getting just as efficient as you possibly can. A particularly impressive side effect of this is the need to know every Pokemon deeply, rather than just cycling through hundreds, skimming through a huge Pokédex. Pokemon is the highest earning RPG franchise, and that feels a little weird to me. But at its core, Pokemon Colosseum is a full-fledged RPG, with a narrative depth that one would expect from the tag RPG. It includes character growth, turn-based strategy, a strong central narrative, and a world that changes with your actions. It may not follow the traditional Pokemon path, but its detour through moral complexity and resource scarcity makes it one of the most mature and compelling Pokemon RPGs ever created. In consideration of general reception, people seem really split over this game. They were then, and they are now by my understanding. If you don't like Pokemon, hey, maybe you should check it out. The story isn't going to trump Chrono Trigger, but it's certainly deeper than any other Pokemon game that was out at the time. If you do like Pokemon, you know what, check it out, but just know that it's different. It's different. This next game is one of the most highly regarded RPGs of all time, so how could it be a surprise to me? The absolute polish of this game has led to me playing this game multiple times, and even this most recent experience reminded me of how difficult it is to just put this game down. I'm talking about Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door. Universally praised as likely the best in the entire series of Paper Mario games, this is also one of the best RPGs on the system. Released in 2004 for the Nintendo GameCube, Paper Mario The Thousand-Year Door is a sequel to the N64 original. This installment continues the charming papercraft look and clever tiny numbers turn-based combat. It still has that incredible humor, heart, and innovation that we saw in Paper Mario 64, but this one kicks it up a notch, bringing us a masterclass in storytelling and design. You play, of course, as that flat, mustachioed plumber Mario. This, again, isn't the platforming beast mode Mario. This is a little more rounded Mario, but, still flat, of course. This Mario focuses on his relationship with his tag-along friends, solving mysteries, exploring diverse locations, and navigating political conspiracies. And he still jumps. Mario is tasked with finding 7 crystal stars to open the mysterious Thousand-Year door that lies under Rogueport. With that, he travels from the crime-ridden port city to a dragon's castle, a haunted mansion, a wrestling arena with Rock Hawk, oh yeah!
There's only one champ, and it's me.
A train filled with suspects like murder on the Orient Express, and a few other places. Now, I'd hate to ruin all these locations because that's part of the enjoyment of this game. Where am I going to end up next? Each chapter unfolds like its own quirky genre story, making every new location feel fresh and surprising. It's just pure creative joy from beginning to end, and that is what we've come to expect with Mario. The game's writing shines through yet again, as it's still sharp, funny, and often self-aware. It's not afraid to poke fun at RPG tropes, the Mario franchise, or even the player. Characters like the flamboyant Rock Hawk bring personality to every moment, while even side NPCs like a ghostly admiral with trauma or a business-savvy mouse thief get more development than some main characters in other games. And then there's the villainous X-Nauts, who feel more like they stumbled in from a Saturday morning cartoon in the best possible way, bumbling their way clumsily toward world domination or something. Maybe they're carving their faces on the Moon Cobra Commander style or something. They're the antagonists, but they're basically just cute too. Mechanically, Paper Mario for N64 was on point. Thousand-Year Door refines this further to near perfection. Battles are turn-based but interactive, requiring timed button presses, stylish moves, and audience engagement. There's an actual audience that watches your fights, and they'll cheer, boo, throw things, or even rush the stage based on your performance. It's a brilliant sort of meta twist that turns routine encounters into like mini performances. Combine that with badges that let you customize Mario's abilities and partners who each have unique combat and exploration skills, and you get an RPG system that's deceptively deep and completely approachable. There's simply just not much wrong with this game. I couldn't come up with a criticism outside this freaking fortune teller. And it was simply her willingness, I guess, to repeat phrases as I kept screwing up the button spam to get through her talking. It was honestly worse for me than that owl in Ocarina of Time. No, I don't want to hear that again. Please chill, Miss Cleo, please.
Call me now for a free reading and find out the truth.
Visually, the game continues to embrace its paper style and just kicks it up a notch, which is part of the charm. Mario can fold into a paper airplane, slip through cracks, or roll into a tube to solve puzzles. You get these abilities from treasure chests in locations that curse Mario with the ability to do more. But the cursed chest plays it off as if he were really inconveniencing Mario. It's actually pretty funny. Environments are vibrant storybooks brought to life, shifting from colorful villages to eerie forests with artistry that one could argue is unmatched. The way the world literally peels, folds, and pops with paper effects, it never gets old. This stuff only reinforces the game's whimsical, handcrafted feel, and it's great. But what truly sets Thousand-Year Door apart is its tone. It's playful without being childish. It's heartfelt without being saccharine. There was a moment that defines this pretty well early on when your turtle buddy rushes this pile of dry bones thinking it's his dead dad. And I was like, that's pretty dark, right? Well, it turns out that it isn't, and he just shrugs it off and moves on. I actually still got a pretty good chuckle out of this despite it being like my third time playing this. I'd simply forgotten how good the writing is. It's a game that respects your time and intelligence while still offering genuine laughs, thoughtful themes, and an adventure that is well-paced with surprises at every turn. It's really difficult to capture all the magic of this game in a few hundred words in a video. There's a reason the re-release blew minds when it was announced. People have loved this game for years, and there's a reason for it. If I had to recommend only one RPG for the GameCube, this would be it. The GameCube version, by the way, still holds up incredibly well, as you can see here, but the Switch version is much cheaper and more readily available, and it looks better. Check that one out. If you made it this far in the video, there's a good chance you might be enjoying this content. Thank you. If you're cooking or whatever else is going on, maybe you're cooking, maybe you're working on something, consider subscribing. I'd love to sit with you through your projects while you're doing whatever. Maybe you're sitting on the toilet, I don't know. Either way, I'd be happy to be with you the rest of the way. Just, yammering in your ear about some RPGs. I have a lot of other videos like this. If you'd like to check those out, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's talk about the next one. Batten Kaios, Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean. Man, that is a long title for an epic RPG created by, hold your breath, Monolith Soft and Tri-Crescendo. Yeah, the same Monolith Soft behind Xenosaga. I feel like this is more of a niche RPG, but what a collaboration from two different incredibly successful developers. Released in 2003, this title really shines due to its unique mechanics, unique storytelling, and lush artistic design. It's a game that takes traditional JRPG elements and fuses them with experimental card-based combat, while still delivering the character progression, world building, and quest-driven narrative that define the role-playing genre. And all of these things add up to a very satisfying whole. Batten Kaios is, as one would expect, a story-driven experience centered around Kaios, a brash and impulsive young man who is missing a wing. Now that's pretty significant detail in a world where some people are born with wings. The twist, however, is that the player doesn't actually play as Kaios. Instead, you are cast as a guardian spirit bonded to Kaios, guiding his decisions and forming a relationship with him. You, as the player, are sort of like onlooking, but also participating, as Kaios will make note of you to his friends and then refer to you and your decisions. He also has to defer to your choices, but he will voice his concerns regarding some of the things that you choose. This narrative device offers a bit of a meta layer to the storytelling, making player interaction more personal and dynamic. It's a little different. It might sound odd in the way that I'm representing it here, but trust me, it works. It's really quite impressive. The story unfolds across floating islands that hover in a sky-based world, kind of like Skies of Arcadia, funny enough. It's an imaginative setting supported by rich lore and environmental variety. The islands house different civilizations, each with their own culture, politics, and problems, contributing to that strong sense of world building. I know I talk about that so often, but that's so important. I like that each area gives you a bit of a sense of accomplishment once you exhaust the mini issue going on there. This isn't unique to this RPG, obviously, as Dragon Quest was doing this long ago. But it's sort of a slightly more connected Dragon Quest setup. Dragon Quest is pretty, like, this is the place you go, deal with their problems, and move on. This one's a little more connected in the world I hear. Now, I say I hear because this game is long. I played several hours of it, but it simply is a beast of a game. So my experience is a little limited. Exploration is important, of course, as players traverse cities, dungeons, and natural landscapes while solving puzzles and gathering items to progress, helping people along the way. Combat in Batten Kaios is another place where the game diverges from standard RPG conventions. Rather than utilizing traditional menu-based actions, battles are conducted using a card system called Magnus. Each Magnus card contains the essence of an item, spell, or attack. Players build decks for each character and must think strategically about how to combine them in real time, with turn order and card sequencing affecting the outcome. Now, this was a huge turnoff for me when I heard about it, as I thought it would be a weird and unfun system, but the combat is incredibly addictive. I was so surprised. This system of deck building, a card game with the turn-based strategy of classic RPGs, demands strategy. It demands foresight and resource management, and it certainly demands adaptability. As a person who also enjoys deck building games and general fantasy card games like Magic the Gathering, I had no trouble adjusting to this. Again, the big thing I want to note is that the combat is really enjoyable. It was enough so that I said, you know what? I thought I'd hate this. Who the heck made this? Who came up with this battle system, right? And then that's where I found the information about Monolith Soft, and it all started making sense. Their combat systems are typically pretty awesome. Despite its deviation from norms, Batten Kaios keeps the RPG conventions such as level progression, stat decisions based on when to level up, party management, and skill development. Each character has unique strengths, weaknesses, and preferred Magnus types, adding depth to customization and team strategy. Blocking enemy attacks is also handled through the Magnus system, requiring players to acquire and maintain card sets that they can choose to attack with or block with over time. And this adds yet another layer of tactical planning. You want to hear something I suspected but wasn't sure of until I did a little thread reading online? You can choose to level up once on a character or save the level ups and do multiples. I think it was 9 or 10 at a time, I can't quite remember. If you choose to do the larger groups of leveling up instead of the singles, your stats will be higher by the end, permanently affecting the stats of the main character. Now this is a cool concept, but then that's an extra layer of strategy in choosing when to get a little stronger, or just suffer the difficulty of pushing through an area underleveled for the payoff later. There's just a lot going on under the hood in this game. The game's themes are explored with beautiful fidelity: loss, identity, betrayal, and hope. The character arcs are as robust as the combat. As Kaios and his party uncover the truth behind a looming empire and ancient powers, the narrative evolved from a personal revenge tale into a broader conflict where the stakes become existential. The game is apparently over 50 hours long just for the story, but this commitment to a deep and unfolding story that's shaped by both character interaction and player influence is impressive, even in the light of so many excellent RPGs out there. This game is simply beautiful. Ultimately, Batten Kaios Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean isn't just a card-based RPG. We shouldn't dismiss it as that. Don't let this turn you off from it. I did for a while, and I feel like I robbed myself of an awesome experience. It emphasizes narrative and character development, and still has fun strategic combat. And I don't know if it would be fair to ask more of it than it already gives. Batten Kaios really surprised me because I went in expecting just simply not to like it. I was looking at it as an obligation because it's a famous RPG on the GameCube. I was like, I need to play it. But I was so surprised by it. The real question then becomes, what could possibly have been more surprising to me, right? Because I told you that the final game would be was the most surprising to me. That game, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on the Nintendo GameCube is Final Fantasy, but not quite what you might be expecting in Final Fantasy. It didn't have turn-based battles, which, you wouldn't be wrong to expect in Final Fantasy. It doesn't give you menus upon menus or a lone protagonist facing down a world-ending threat, so it's missing some, Final Fantasy aspects, but that's okay. What is Final Fantasy in there is very Final Fantasy 2, just in a different package. Instead, what this game did was bring friends together, literally around a single TV, and throw them into a unique and now often overlooked chapter in the Final Fantasy franchise. It's sort of like anti-Final Fantasy. It's weird. Released in the US in 2004, Crystal Chronicles was a weird and wonderful experiment. Man, maybe I'm waxing nostalgic here, but it was so cool back in the day when these bigger companies were willing to experiment on some of these titles, man. I mean, yeah, we still have it, but again, maybe I'm just waxing nostalgia. Moving on. Anyway, this game was the first Final Fantasy game on a Nintendo home console since the Super Nintendo era, and it carried with it a sense of reunion and innovation. The tricky part and the notorious part is that to fully enjoy the multiplayer, each player needed a Game Boy Advance and a link cable. Now that sounds like a hassle today, but back then, it made the game feel like a sacred ritual. Such an intentional meetup. You didn't just play Crystal Chronicles with anyone. You called over your best friends, unpacked your tangled cords, and dove into its world together. And if I recall correctly, as I'm getting a little white in the beard, it was awesome. I say the word charming a lot, and I love it. But folks, this game, it gets me. The game's setting of a planet cloaked in a poisonous miasma demanded you to carry a protective crystal chalice wherever you went. Now, that sounds like a bummer, and it could be, but when you think about it, given a bunch of your friends sitting around, making someone carry that thing is actually pretty hilarious. So in multiplayer, one unlucky friend, I guess, had to lug it around while the others fought monsters, cast spells, or stack magic attacks in real-time combos, while others were having fun. Now, this mechanic kinda sucked, but it also forced communication, strategy, and more often than not, hilarious arguments about who was going to be stuck carrying the chum bucket. That role was as essential as it was begrudging, and it made Crystal Chronicles a co-op experience unlike any other. I said charming. That art style, God! It's like a Final Fantasy paint-by-numbers coloring book. Character races like the bird-like Selkies and the scholarly Yuks stood out in a sea of typical fantasy archetypes. The soundtrack, composed by Kumi Tanioka, I suppose that's how you pronounce that, is breathtaking. Now maybe I mispronounced that, or maybe you don't recognize that name, but you probably should. You ever heard of Minecraft?
Chicken jockey!
The game is full of rustic, Celtic-inspired melodies that stuck with you long after the screen faded to black. Even today, tracks like Morning Sky and Departure are earworms. It's great. I particularly like this dance party at the end of the first chapter. Imagine being in the club and they drop this banger. The game's story was told in fragments, through diary entries, passing townsfolk, and occasional run-ins with other caravans. The basic idea is that you're trying to get rid of this miasma by uniting the crystals. The caravans would travel the map trying to complete this task, and you're part of a specific caravan. The setup is almost meditative, creating these bite-sized chunks and inviting players to really savor the journey instead of just racing to a final boss, which is, always tempting with friends. If you ain't in it for the perps, guess what? You're carrying the chum bucket, my friend. You and your friends become wanderers in a strange and melancholy world, gathering myrrh from ancient trees to keep your village alive for another year. It's all hope in the face of hopelessness. Hey, it's Final Fantasy. In single-player mode, the experience isn't quite the same, but I'm telling you today, it's still an emotional weight. Maybe it's easier to slow down and take in all the beauty of the world in single player, but you definitely lose the camaraderie. Single player is definitely solitude, unless you count this, the stupid Moogle here. Either way, you and McLovin here can still travel the world in your caravan, working together to fight back the miasma and, reconnect the map. I guess McLovin's carrying the chum bucket this time around.
I am McLovin.
Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, whether you're playing together or single, is a game about connection, in every sense. It was about the connection of family caravans, the connection of working together, and about making memories in between dungeons. It asked a lot, even to the extent of what all you needed to play, but it gave back something unforgettable. It gave us an RPG that felt alive when shared, and contemplative and mostly peaceful when it wasn't. For many GameCube owners, it wasn't that single-player Final Fantasy we knew. This game was a sleepover legend, a bonding ritual, a moment in time captured in crystal. It's on the Switch, and if you can get some buddies together, that's some memories in the making. Godspeed, soldiers.